Hey there, hi there, ho there. It is the Four Color Cafe. It is Wednesday, November 8th, and this is weird. Man, seriously, all of y'all need to knock this whole daylight savings time off. It's been 3 days, and I'm still screwing up my schedule. Anyways, welcome everybody. How's it
Hello.
going?
It's going all right. How about yourself?
I'm conscious that I'm still complaining about lack of sleep, but I've already bothered you guys with that like 10 times behind screen, so we won't.
I don't know. You said something about not having any sleep.
Bear says that I need to stop my winning. I think
Right, he'll stick to losing. I
Yeah, I know.
I think he just called you a loser.
That's entirely possible. We've got Len in the house as well. Good morning, sir. Anyhow, so today we are going to be talking about getting hooked. Now, we are going to take it in some slightly different directions. We aren't going to talk about just how to hook your players in a game. In fact, that we're actually going to save towards the latter part of the show. But one thing I do want to say before we actually get started, as all of you know, the Four Color Cafe was started by Bear, the Gen X GM, who is typically our host, but he has decided to take probably a couple of weeks off for a mental health break. If you want to know more, he does have a video about it on his channel that I'd recommend people watch, not just because you'll understand why he's taking a break, but just because he does say some interesting things about life and connecting with people. And I think we've got a great group here. We've got a great community that's spread out now amongst a bunch of different channels. And make sure you're reaching out and just checking in. We've become friends here, and I'd like us to all stick around for quite a while. So anyways, that's all I'm going to say about that. Anyways, so we are here to talk about getting hooked. Now, to start off, what I actually want, like the direction I wanted to focus on, but then we started talking about other ways to talk about it. In Eli's stream on Sunday morning, one of the people in chat mentioned that he was having trouble getting hooked on D&D. And we were talking about it, and basically he talked about how he wasn't into the fantasy aspect, fighters, wizards, that kind of thing, and it just wasn't his thing. And so he played in Call of Cthulhu, a couple of Call of Cthulhu games. He enjoyed those. And so we started talking about what does it take to get hooked into a game. So I think we're going to go ahead and start it there. Eli, for you, what is it that hooks you into a game?
So getting me hooked on a game, it comes down to there has to be something about the game that resonates with me. I have to enjoy not just the mechanics of it, but like the theme and the story it's presenting. And story, for lack of a better term, even if you're not playing story-based games, there's usually some sort of core conceit to the game that and that has to resonate with me. Kind of referring back to the original comment that kind of sparked this. If fighters and wizards or even the D&D mechanics of those aren't what's doing it for you, then find another game that's doing that. And that's kind of, with me, it's like I can pick up 4 different fantasy games. They're not all going to sing to me the same way. as D&D has.
Okay, Cody.
Yeah, pretty much what Eli was speaking to. Any kind of really anything, but especially games have to have some kind of qualities that I like about them. Usually, that's going to be the art. The art is usually what draws me in first. Not to say that a game with bad art, I won't like it, but that usually is what draws me in first. So if it has a nice cover and if it looks, if the aesthetic looks really cool, which I like all types of different aesthetics. But those things are important to me. Those things really do get me into the idea of wanting to play that game. If the art sucks and the presentation's not very cool and the aesthetic looks kind of lame, I'm probably going to be turned off of it initially unless somebody tells me, otherwise. So that's pretty much what's always drawn me into wanting to play games in any game specifically. But those would be the initial things. But after that, I'm going to look at the rules, and obviously, if the rules don't speak to me, that's a whole nother thing, and that's just personal. All these things are just personal preference. And that's pretty much it for the things that are going to hook me into a game initially.
Okay, Zane.
I'm going to go with the initial draw. When we first started playing together as a group, the draw came from the books that we had read, books and the movies. I mean, most of the movies we watched were at drive-in, so they were all cheese anyway. But it was the hook that brought us into a particular game was an idea or an adventure that we'd already seen, something that sparked our minds and our imaginations, and then we kind of sought the game itself based off of what our imagination was already priming for. That's what drew me into Traveler. It was Alien played at the drive-in, and a couple of my buddies. It was science fiction horror, and then we saw The Thing with Kurt Russell, and my buddies and I, our brains just exploded. It was like, ooh, is there a game that does this? And we tripped across Traveler, and that kind of took us down a path. And it's really the game mechanics themselves. Really, we can adjust. I can go any particular method or madness that a game wants to throw at me. But it's the where's my imagination running, and I'll make the game system work.
Okay, Len.
A bunch of different things can hook me into a game. I don't know if they can maintain my interest there. To maintain my interest, you're going to just need a good GM and a good group interfacing with one another. But to initially hook me in, I don't think I disagree with anything anyone has said here. Artwork can totally pull me in and get me to start thinking about the universe. A pre-existing story or a pre-existing film or something I've seen can completely prime me for wanting to play in a particular universe. For me, since I have a love affair with rules and game mechanics, and I love ones that work, and I have trouble dealing with ones that I find clunky, awkward, or intrusive to the game. So while mechanics that don't work, mechanics that are sufficiently poor will dissuade me from a game, even if I'm interested in the genre and like the people. The flip side is mechanics that work particularly well will probably pull me in, even if I'm neutral about the setting or the genre or anything else. And last, regardless of all of that, if I know it's a excellent bunch of our peers or gamers, sometimes just spending the time with an excellent bunch of folks will pull me in. So, variety of things.
Okay. Yeah, for me, like what hooks me on a game is usually the story. Something, I know everyone's probably sick of me always bringing this up, but one of the things that I had trouble with for D&D was everyone's like, oh, just go grab the player's handbook, and I pick it up and it says, here, make a character, but it didn't give me any kind of a oh, hey, this is what it is. You're a grand hero off on adventure. It didn't give me any kind of hook to pull me in and want to play the game. So it has kind of soured me a lot over the years, just in general. Now, what I would actually, I was literally just going to be like, oh, my point's going to be story. And then Len actually brought up something really big for me, is that like I've never been interested in going down to the game shop and like, oh, there's game posted, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna join up with them, or or I'm gonna with all the online communities that we have now. That's never been a hook for me, but my friends want to play. Yeah, that's gonna bring me in. It like Cody was asking the other day if I ever was a fan of World of Darkness, and like literally I used to own a bunch of their books, but it doesn't do anything for me. I don't like being the bad guy, but that's what my friends were playing. And so I sat in on a bunch of those sessions just because it was my friends playing. So that will absolutely hook me in. So let's go back around the other direction. We'll start with Len this time. But so what is it that you do if something isn't hooking you in? But that's what the group wants to play. What is it that you do to start, or what are things that you think you can do to get interested in whatever that subject is that normally doesn't appeal to you?
Usually I will just suggest that we play another game while mailing people photographs of their children going to school. I think the point comes across pretty clearly, and we end up playing another game. So, but if I'm feeling particularly generous, however, it sort of depends on what it is that is stopping me from getting hooked.
Actually, you know what? That's a little bit better. What is it that normally stops you from getting hooked? That's what I wanted to ask.
Yeah, I mean, because there's some things that my group, the nature of my group is that we play short campaigns and we swap games and we swap game masters. And I tend to be one of the two, occasionally three. So if I'm not enjoying a particular mini campaign, I can kind of grin and bear it because I know it won't go on for too long. But objectively, I mean, if it were a situation where I were in a group where the game was going on for an extended period of time, and I was not hooked in, it takes a lot for me to really not be hooked in. But I guess all right. So what will knock me off course? If I, as I mentioned earlier, find that the rules of the game are just unbearably arcane and baroque, or conversely, strangely, sometimes if the game is too fluffy, I don't know what the word is, but there's some times where I'm playing a game and I don't know, I'm a net runner and I'm got a high powered rifle, but it doesn't, it's difficult to describe it, but the game doesn't make me feel like what I think I should feel as my character. Boy, can I vague that up any further? Some games just, to me, don't make me feel like what I think I'm supposed to feel. And if I can deal with that for a while, but eventually I will sort of just tire of the game. Beyond that, I think I will tire of a game if, for me personally, I'm the kind of gamer that enjoys RP and enjoys action and enjoys puzzle solving. I actually need some of each of that. Not in every session, but I need some of each of that. I enjoy all those aspects. And if the game goes on too long without one of those aspects for a very long period of time, I will start to just fade a bit on the game. And I'll usually have a conversation with the GM and specifically say, basically share this information and say, you know, and sometimes the answer is, okay, great. Sometimes the answer is I may have fallen into maybe not necessarily a game for me. And since we're all adults, sometimes it's just like, hey, thank you so much, but this may not be the right fit for me right now. You guys have a blast.
Okay. Zane, what keeps you from getting hooked in?
The one that I can think back on that I wanted in on this one game so bad, and it hurt. It just absolutely kind of killed me a little bit inside when it didn't work out. And that was Horse Clans. It was a GURPS game. Loved it. Read the books. I was a big Horse Clans fan back in the day. And several of my friends they're like, oh, okay. They'd read it because I was like, give it a read. Interesting concept. And the mechanics came out, and it was, as Len had said, nobody felt their character was what they thought their character was. It just deadpanned. It was an absolutely, we did 4 sessions, and it was completely painful. And as much as we enjoyed reading the books, the system itself just mechanically didn't work for the way we wanted our characters to work, just weren't working within the construct of the game in the moment. And we've since gone back and actually had quite a little bit of fun with it. But in the moment, we dropped that. We did 4 sessions and we dropped the books. We're like, yeah, thanks. That was fun. Let's try something else. And it was really the group in the moment was not there. And it comes back as an individual. You want to play with, unless you're doing a one-off, like a solo run of some variation, you really want to fit in with your group. And if either you or the group as a whole are just they're not there, well, that session's dead, man. You either got to scrap it and go a different way, or have a conversation and come to some form of a treatise. It's like, hey, let's keep doing this, because our first attempts at riffs, we sucked. It was horrible. And then we read some more and we went a different way. We kind of salvaged that game for my group of friends. So it was having a group of people that you're willing to talk to and say, it's not working, and take it for what it is. It was a learning experience. Yeah, it's a loss. You put that in the L column. It was still a learning experience, and you do something different the next time. But that's how groups grow over time, in my opinion. But I think Len nailed it. Absolutely nailed it.
Okay, Cody.
Okay, so you asked 2 questions there, so I'm going to answer both of them. So the first one, what you were asking, what if your group wants to play some game or something and you're just not hooked into it? Well, if I'm running a game and I don't like it, I'm not going to run it. Simple as that. Because if I'm not having fun, the group's not going to have fun either. I can't get if I can't get invested in a game, I'm not going to run it. Now, it's a different story if somebody in the group wants to run a game that I'm not particularly into, and that happens a lot with my group, because they like games that I don't necessarily like and won't run. But I always say, hey, if you want to play it, cool. You run the game, I'll play in it. And usually in that instance, I come up with my own fun. And the only thing I need to have fun is just good role playing, and I can entertain myself all night long. So as long
and everyone
as,
else,
maybe, yeah. But as long as I can role play, which is my favorite thing about role playing games, I'm good. I'm good to go. I don't care what we playing. So, and as long as it's not just completely flat, horrible game, it'll be fine. Like we're gonna have fun. But I can't bring myself to run a game I don't like. I've tried it in the past. It just doesn't work. If I can't get enthused with it, the game's not going to be any good. As far as what was the second question you were asking?
What keeps you from getting hooked?
It could be a lot of different things. One of the prime examples of the game that I thought that initially attracted me, initially hooked me, and then turned me off really hard is Dungeon Crawl Classics. And I've said this many times. Looks really cool. Love the art. Love the presentation. Has a lot of cool ideas in there. Should hit the marks. I mean, it ticks all the boxes for me, or it should. but for some reason, I've never been able to. I've tried to run this game multiple times, over and over and over again since it came out. And I like after a couple sessions, I'm just like, I hate this game. And I'm not sure why, like all the reasons. So it's hard to say. It's different with every game. Now in this instance, I can tell you some of the reasons. One is I think the mechanics suck. They did a lot of gimmicky things that weren't really necessary. But at the same time, there's a lot of gimmicky things in there that are kind of cool, like the spell effects and the critical hits and all that. But like having all the extra dice, like D16s and D14s and stuff, is just stupid and needless once you actually start playing the game. So that kind of stuff just really took me out of wanting to play the game. So it could be anything really. If a game doesn't. If it's not clicking for me, I can't always explain it. A lot of times though, it's game mechanics is what's going to turn me off of it. Another prime example, and I always shit on this game, but I actually love it, is Shadowrun. I actually love Shadowrun. Shadowrun was one of the first role-playing games I played, but nowadays when I run Shadowrun, it frustrates me to no end. Now I haven't played the newest edition. I've only played like a couple games of 6th edition, so I don't have much experience with that. But every other edition of Shadowrun I've played, I just get frustrated after a certain period of time of running Shadowrun. And I actually love Shadowrun. Like I love the setting. Like again, it ticks all the boxes for me, but there's something there that just doesn't click for me system-wise. So I think most of the time, I said I don't know, but actually I think I do know. I think most of the time it's the system that doesn't work for me. Yeah, go ahead, Eli.
Well, real quick, I think you do bring up a good point. The GM has a lot of power in that situation. Like if you're not hooked in, you have a lot of power to be like, okay, well, it doesn't matter. I'm the one running. Sorry guys, we're not playing this.
Like Zane has really been bringing up a good point that sometimes you can have a system. And this is said over and over again. It does matter what the system is to a degree. Everybody's like, it doesn't matter what the system is. You just have to have a good GM and good players. That's true to an extent. But, Zane was bringing up a point. If you have a good GM and a good group and you guys are just having fun, no matter what the system is, you can create fun just out of just about anything, with the right group.
Even with a system where you roll 2 12-sided dice, for example.
Yeah, and there might be a game that
anything really is viable. It's crazy.
And I've played in campaigns and sessions and stuff where we play a game we don't really like the game, but we're just having fun actually playing the game. You know what I mean? We're actually having fun what we're doing in the game. So needless of whether the game system sucks or not, or whether we're just not into what's going on, we just kind of make our own fun. And that you could definitely do that, right? You don't necessarily the game doesn't necessarily have to hook you, but the game that's happening has to hook you as well, right?
Yeah, good point. All right, Eli, what keeps you from getting hooked?
Let's see. I mean, because honestly, I haven't had too many misses in my gaming history. I'm mostly a GM, so I tend to just get to pick the games that I want to play. So I am the master of my own fate as far as gaming goes. What generally keeps me from getting hooked on a game is a game a system that tries to force my hand too much. Any system that presents to me an idea or a universe. This is usually a case that we run into with like IP based games. And then I get into that game. I'm like, there's a thing in this universe that your game won't let me make. That will definitely take me. Star Wars. I mentioned it before. The old D6 Star Wars could make any character in Star Wars that I ever wanted. The Fantasy Flight version, I would get pigeonholed. I could not make a Luke Skywalker fresh off the farm in that game. And that's because the game's system for construction, character creation, has you pick too many skills, too many abilities just when you're starting out. I always put it doesn't let you be a New Hope character. You have to be an Empire Strikes Back or Beyond character. And so that's one of the things that will definitely drag me out, is a system that presents ideas, or a game that presents ideas whose system does not support those ideas. And run into this sometimes with superhero games where the superhero system is maybe too specific on its powers. You're like, well, I don't want to make that character. I want to make this character, but there's nothing in the game to make this character. That's the number one thing that does it for me. Like Cody pointed out, and Zane also, is honestly, it's kind of up to me and the players. And, I've played games without a system and just role played for the sake of role playing. I mean, I've gone on car rides, for an entire state where I'm sitting there with my buddy. All right, so you're walking down a hallway. What do you do? When we go camping with the kids, they'd be like, Dad, run us through an adventure. I'm like, all right. So I mean, honestly, the other answer would be the Universe RPG. But if you've ever had any experience with that, that's a game that you absolutely will not fall in love with and cannot get hooked on.
Okay, I've never heard of that
13-page character sheet.
13.
Oh,
Track psychic damage by your chakra points. I'm not even joking.
I think I'm going to pass that one. Yeah, for me, the funny thing is what's going to keep me from getting hooked is kind of literally the opposite of what's going to get me hooked. If people are presenting me with a bad story or a bad premise, it's just difficult for me to get into it. Even if I want to, like I've had, or actually I think a good example is Bear. He's been running against the Dark Master and, Bastard Sword and, a few other things. And he's actually given me quite a few invites, but it wasn't until he threw up the Star Trek game that it's like, yes, I will figure it out. I will make the time. I am going to play in this game. Because the others just didn't hook me. So okay, real quick, Len, is it really your birthday today?
No, it was my birthday yesterday, and actually also my wedding anniversary. So.
Oh, well, congratulations on both, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
I
didn't have a whole lot to do with the first, but thanks.
Yeah. I saw that in chat. It's like, well, holy crap. So
and thank you for everyone who said happy birthday. Thank you very much.
Anyhow, all right. So I think all of that is, are a lot of things to keep in mind. But what is it that we can do when we aren't getting hooked on something? Do we need to just say, you know what, screw it, it's time for a new hobby and we're just going to give up? Okay. Is that the choice, or do we need to do something else?
No, that's not the choice. I mean, there are far too many fish in the role-playing sea to give up after your first catch. If I can beat that metaphor to death. It was fishy to begin with, but no, I think there's a couple of things you can do. First of all, your initial experience and your difficulty with a game may 100% be a matter of how you came into it or who you came into it with. If you're not enjoying D&D, it could be that the issue is not D&D. It could be that your GM is a putz and the other players at the table are ridiculous. They're doofuses, and it's just not a good group for you. For example, if I came into a game and everybody at the table was having a great time, and they were just all being all sorts of madcap, zaniness and that goofy, schlocky, D&D style that a lot of people love, I would bounce right off of that. I can't do that. If I'm, if the game is Toon or Paranoia or something like that, sure, but but that would be as much me as it would be the game. And so I would hope that I would find another group. It's not indicative of the game itself necessarily. It's that particular group. There's also changing your tack on your game. For example, with the Fantasy Flight reference for Star Wars, I still played in that campaign and I still enjoyed my character, but it didn't hook me. I instead of playing a farmer, I had to play the head of the local farmers co-op because I had to have like administrative skills and stuff like that. And so I'm still a farmer, but now I'm kind of a head man of the village rather than Luke.
Letterkenny in space. No,
whatever. I played it and I changed tack. I played the character that I could, that still clung to some vestige of my concept and still fit in with the game. And it ultimately ended up being fun. But that came down to, again, me as a player being willing to flex on that. Definitely not going to go, fuck gaming. I'm going to go build toasters. But no, it's not. Good Lord. I mean, I discovered role-playing games in D&D by accident. So, I mean, and 40 years plus later, here I am. So,
okay, Cody, what about you?
No, definitely don't give up the hobby, for God's sake. Just as Eli said, there's going to be something for you. We'll find something for you, for God's sake, man.
I mean, there's always GURPS.
There's always GURPS.
We got plenty of stuff for you.
Oh yeah.
But no, I've met plenty of people that are into other stuff that I'm friends with, and I'm like, hey, do you play role playing games? And I've met a lot of them that say, yeah, I played one time and I hate it, or I played in one campaign or a few adventures, or whatever, and I hate that stuff. And I'm like, why do you hate it? And they're and usually what it is they just had a bad experience.
Yeah,
they played in a bad game. I've got a good friend that plays miniature games with me, one of the nicest dudes in the world. And for me and him have known each other for years and years. And he really loves the D&D computer games. And so me and him started talking about that. I was like, why don't you play D&D? Like, you love fantasy.
Hold on real quick. You said computer games. Are you talking like the old gold box or like
no,
like
fancy
Baldur's Gate 3?
No, Gold box is awesome, by the way. But, that's my choice.
Yes,
that's
we're
my
all
choice.
old.
Don't make me go get my gold box games. No, he was really into Baldur's Gate and Baldur's Gate 2 and stuff. And I was like, dude, why don't? And he loves Warhammer Fantasy and all this stuff. I'm like, why don't you like D&D? He's like, yeah, it just wasn't for me. I tried it and it just wasn't any good. I was like, I think you would like it. I think you just had a bad experience with it. And this went on for about 10 years until finally I was like, dude, let me run a game for you. And I guarantee you're going to have a good time. So he's like, okay, finally he gives in. We play like a one shot. And now he's hooked. He loves it. He's all into it. He's like, dude, that was so much fun. Like, I had no idea that's what, D&D was like. Like, he had a totally different experience with somebody else. And you can get that because every GM's different, whether good or bad. Everybody has a different playing style. Even a group as a whole could have a completely different playing style. As Eli said, if the group might be having a lot of fun within themselves, cracking jokes and playing all these silly characters. But that's not for Eli. That might not be for me. That might not be for a lot of people, but it's, those people are having a lot of fun doing it. But if a new person got into that, like Eli, if that was Eli's first game and they're all, Bob, the fantastic fighter, and likes to get drunk and go to the inn and tell bad puns and jokes.
There?
Yeah. Are there any girls there? Where's the Mountain Dew?
I cast magic missile at the darkness.
You can't tell if it's magical by swinging
Attack the darkness, man.
There will come a day where that's not funny, but not this day.
We all have to be dead first. and that's
Right.
coming far too soon.
And James said it well in the chat, and that's pretty much what I'm beating around the bush at. Usually it has to do with the GM, but not always the GM. The blame is always put on the GM, but a lot of times, yes, a lot of times it is the GM, but it's also the group as a whole. It's not just the GM that makes a good game. It's also the players that make the game. If the players aren't as involved as the GM, it's not going to be as strong of a game, no matter how good the GM is. Right.
Yeah, I would say also that, I mean, the individual coming to the game, there's a ton of responsibility on them as well.
Absolutely.
To that point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think the GM gets a lot of grief as far as that's concerned, because they're sort of that figurehead for the group.
As far as popular opinion is concerned, it's always the GM's fault.
Right. But I'm just saying, but with that figurehead sort of position, they're going to get a lot of the grief, even if they don't necessarily deserve it. So,
the GM is the leader of the group. They are the one in charge, right? Like, and they should be setting the example for the rest of everybody. But, the players have to realize they have to give some to make this experience great as well. Right. It's not all the GM. The GM does need to, you do need a good GM or whatever. And the GM should be there and do all the right things, and set a good example and run a good game and come prepared and all that stuff. But at the same time, the players need to invest too. If they are not investing as much as the GM is, it's not going to be as good of a game. And also, and I've said this many times, that if you are a good player and there are weaker players at the table, which is we're going off on a different tangent here, but this does have to do with that, because if you have new players at the table, they're only going to become as hooked as you are into the game. So if you're a veteran player, you should be trying to hook those new players into the game and get them involved and bring your A game and set a good example and be the best player you can at the table. So, and also try to pull these people in and hook them, right? I mean, that's what I try to do. I'm always trying to get new people in the hobby. Like, I love this hobby. I want, as many people as I can to get into it with me, so I can have more people to play with me. And also just, I want more people, spread the word. I want to, have you heard the word of Dungeons and Dragons today? Because I'm here to spread the gospel.
Zane, do you still have police in the background, or are you clear?
No, they're done. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's what happens when you're right next to a beach.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I was just gonna go if they were still, assaulting, whatever. I was gonna jump over to Len and then back to you. But
no, we're clear. I want to build off a little bit of what Cody's been saying. There is that it's like right now I'm in a game where I'm a player in the game, which is an uncommon experience for me. And we've got we've got 4 veteran players, and we've got 2 first game, and we've got a first time GM as well. And so there's a whole lot of, it's like, oh bugger, there's so many things that can go wrong. And the 2 newbies, we've got one veteran player that we're trying to put a muzzle on, because he's so overly enthusiastically trying to help that he's kind of smothering these new players. And the nice part is that the wife and I are sitting in the room, and we're looking at each other. We're having a conversation back and forth. It's like, what can we do to draw these guys in? What can we do to help them want to play? And the reason I bring that up is because back to your original question, which is, if you get a bad session, do you walk away? Part of that's your personality. For me, no, man, I'm going to take that pain and I'm going to try to build it and go somewhere else. And could it be the GM? Sure. That's an easy scapegoat. A lot of times it's what you made of that encounter. And how you grow from that encounter. It's like, as I'm saying, is the group that we're with right now we're in our third session. We just completed our 3rd session on this little campaign. It's going to be it's going to be probably a 6 or an 8 game run. And if we don't figure a way to bring these two newbies into the game, we're going to lose them. They're going to go like, well, that sucked, and walk away. Or it's going to be a TPK because people are doing stupid things. And as a veteran player, it's on your shoulders to nudge. You don't control the game, but you can. What you can, having said it, you don't control the game. However, your input can shape the direction of the game. And as a player, if you're seeing somebody who's not having fun at the table, it's kind of our responsibility as older players to go, hey, what's going on? What about this? What are you struggling with? Do you not understand? And you don't want to belittle them. The conversation has to be a very positive experience because they're already. You get somebody who's in their late 30s or early 40s, and this is their first foray into role playing, and all of a sudden they've got some old fart going, dude, you're doing it wrong. Bye. That's going to be a short-lived experience. So you have to. The table needs to be aware of what's everybody else doing. How are they doing? Are they having an off night, or is this just not clicking with them? And talk to each other. I mean, that's kind of the struggle that like the wife and I are having right now is we're really smashing our heads trying to figure out what can we do to make sure that these two noobs are going to have a fun time. They understand what they're doing and what their options are so that they can actually have some fun in the moment. So no, don't quit. Just come at it sideways.
Okay. Len is itching to say something. I can tell.
No more than or less than normal. I mean, I think everyone is completely on point. And if I'm itching for anything, is to ask the question about what was the question again? Because I feel like it sort of veered a bit. Part of the question is about how do we maintain our own interest, and and then it's kind of gone on to sort of new people. So I'm going to ask you, what question do you want me to answer?
What would you say?
Sorry.
No, it wasn't you. I think that happened I think Brian's off the cuff, do you just quit gaming forever, sort of sent us tumbling down a particular hill that may not have been the intention. So
it actually sort of was the intention.
Okay.
That's one thing I was going to bring up, because part of the you actually missed the pre-show discussion on this, Len. It was just a couple minutes before, so it's not like if you'd shown up 20 minutes early, you would have caught this. No, it was, anyways, you're fine. What sparked this whole conversation that we're having was somebody in Eli's chat who just mentioned, he's like, I just can't get hooked on D&D. And it just turned out like he really wasn't interested in D&D. It's not that he had any problems with role playing
or even fantasy. He just said he couldn't figure out, he couldn't get into how warriors worked and how wizards worked,
Yeah, and so one of the comments that I made is that if you're struggling to get hooked, one of the things to do would be, figure out what it is that you aren't interested in. I don't like me. I generally don't like fantasy. It's hard for me to get hooked on fantasy. If I know that when somebody approaches me about a game, it's going to affect whether I want to get into it or not. And part of the problem with the way that I phrased that response to the chat, hold on a second.
I'm so interested. What's going on?
The wife is complaining about how my children are like me. Anyways, so but the point being, I feel a little bad about how
I can't even imagine that. I mean,
what? more copies of me in the world? Zane?
Yeah.
Okay. So, anyways, but
I'm just the concept of, in one household. That's a lot.
Yeah, there's 3 more of me. But the way that I phrased it, the guy in chat basically, responded with, "Oh, so I just need to drop the hobby and go find something else to do." And all of us were like, no,
that's not what we said.
Yeah,
nowhere near what we said.
If D&D isn't your thing, we've got options. Just let us know what it is. Like, either A, what you don't like, or B, what you do like. So anyhow, sorry.
Okay,
go from there, Len.
So, well, I guess within the context of another player and them being hooked and getting players hooked and that kind of thing. Depending on your background, whichever of these examples is more relevant to your own life experience, we don't think of it this way, but role-playing game, inviting someone to a role-playing game is like inviting someone to an existing game of like an existing game where you have people coming in regularly of Texas Hold'em or like an orgy. The fact of the matter is, there are probably
I've ever been at, but
there are probably a whole lot of rules and assumptions that are in play about your game or whatever that may or may not fit for new people. And you kind of need to understand what it is they're looking for, what experience they come with, what they're expecting. You can listen to a D&D podcast that is really a laugh riot, rip roaring joke a minute. And you could listen to a D&D podcast, same game system, that at least certain episodes, particularly if the people playing are in it enough, that can get you to tear up. And that's the same game. And that's the same setting. And that's the same mechanics. But our role-playing, even the same game, same system, same setting, what you might actually be doing at the table can be so vastly different. And I think that needs to be understood by the people coming in, and the people inviting them need to know what they're looking for and give them the heads up about that stuff. I think there's a lot of assumptions about what's going on in the game that we, as people who've played this stuff for a long time, often forget about until there's some of this kind of frisson between new players and different expectations and different play styles and so on. But I think that's all really important. And I don't even think game books talk about it, but when you're inviting people to a game or the type of game, again, a D&D game or a Star Wars game or whatever it is, it can be completely dramatically different. Even same system, same settings, same rules, same edition, doesn't matter. And all that stuff needs to be, I think, brought up so that everybody's on the same page, and so that people are hooked by the excitement of not just Star Wars, but it's silly. It's, and I think Zane actually nailed it when he talked about the excitement. The hook comes from stuff you've already seen. And so there's a difference if you tell somebody, well, Star Wars, but have you seen Spaceballs? Because that's kind of what we're doing. Or Star Wars, but we're really talking about like prequels. This is dramatic and epic and kind of tragic, right? Anyway, so look, if someone's going to bring an orgy into the conversation about role-playing, it's going to be me. Let's just accept this and move on. Anyway, so as for me, what do I do to sort of, for my own interest, if I'm losing or if I don't have interest in a game, honestly, I will just focus on whatever I am interested in, whether it's my character. I will often talk to the game master about like, hey, I'd like for my character to sort of, like present an idea or a subplot or something And usually GMs are pretty receptive about that because it shows interest and so on. So I will just sort of dive into my character. And that'll hold me through for a while.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think all of that. My brain just turned off. But I think that does kind of get into it. Like I've been seeing a bunch in chat, like Shauner brings up a point. He says change your game style to match the new players. Follows it up with the new player. Is the player excited to be there? And I think it's not just the new player is excited. I think actually I think that's a good point, is just making sure that we're all showing excitement about being there, whether we're a player or a GM. You know, like if you're showing up to the game as a chore, you know, it's going to cause that hook to come loose. You know, if you've got a new player, or even if you've got existing players, you know, somebody, you know, just showing up, you know, as a chore is going to rub off on everyone else. So I think that's a good point. And yes, Bear, I am avoiding like 90% of those comments.
I think there's another part to that too that has, I mean, we're talking about, you know, players and what they're taking from it and what they, you know, making an effort and all that. But I think there's also something to be said for just bouncing off the game itself. And that's kind of what the guy who was talking in my comments seemed much more like he was going for. It wasn't that he wasn't enjoying playing, or he wasn't enjoying what was going on at the table. He just really was not interfacing with D&D as a game, as a system. And I think that's another thing. You know, it's like you're not necessarily going to hit every game and go, this is I can do this, I want to do this. I mean, and that's what we were trying to tell him. But I think it's an important part of the conversation. D&D may not do it for you. RuneQuest might do it for you. Palladium Fantasy might do it for you. You know, GURPS Fantasy might do it for you, because they're going to play differently. And it could be that maybe he just doesn't like Vancian magic. Maybe somebody needs to tell him about spell points or something.
Does anyone like Vancian magic? Let's be honest.
I do.
Was that person a new player though? New to the hobby?
I believe he is, because it's RTB Bishop. I think was the guy in the his screen name. He's in the channels, the chats through like Ye Olde Geeks channel and my channel and stuff quite frequently. Don't know his gaming experience. I think he's sort of not brand new, but new-ish. Like he hasn't played a lot, but still, I mean, I know. I think it's. I'll go so far as to say I think it's naive to expect that everybody who runs into a game is going to like that game if they just try hard enough. You know.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Some games are going to be too mathy for people, and no matter what, they just don't like it because it's too mathy. Period.
Or they just might not like the mechanics. Like I said, Vancian magic might really wrinkle somebody. Why do I forget my magic when I cast it? You know, why do I have to memorize it again?
Yeah.
You know, and then, you know, that's why spell point systems might work for them, because you can cast freely with whatever you want. You just have to have a certain amount of power. Yeah.
The reason I asked about the person's history is only because I don't know why I think this, but it struck me that if they were new to gaming, it just feels to me like they would be, if they can't get into D&D, it's more about the genre, the setting, the expectations and the assumptions of the setting than it is about the mechanics. But if they are an experienced role, I kind of feel like you have to play a number of systems before you start appreciating what you like and noticing what you hate. Now, maybe that's incorrect, but
some of his comments made it seem like he had played a couple of systems, because he was talking about how he didn't like how he couldn't get into how warriors and wizards worked.
Okay. So yeah.
And so I don't know how much experience he had, but it's very possible that, he, like I said, he just doesn't like that way that they work. I don't know.
Are we talking about 5e or first edition or BX?
He didn't specify,
Yeah.
but it's an old school channel that he was in on the chat for. Well, he was on my chat, but the group tends to be kind of more old schoolers than it does 5eers. I'm the most 5e person I know in the streamosphere that I deal with.
Look, I love old school, but I can absolutely see someone new coming to old school and saying, wait a minute, wizards roll a D4 at first level for hit points. That's stupid.
He did not provide a ton of
I
information.
don't know.
So we're going based on I think Brian and myself, at least I can speak for myself, more speaking to his whole, like, I should just give up completely.
Yeah. Yeah, it was the give up that kind of
I don't like toast. I'm going to stop eating.
We're a bunch of middle-aged men talking about a game on a Wednesday night because we're not actually playing the game. Yeah, we're not the audience for I'm just going to give up.
Hey, we have played games on the show before once, that Len ran.
If it says anything about me not willing to give up the first half of an hour of this stream, I was still working.
Oh, I swear I would stream so much more if I was willing to do it during work hours. Anyhow,
the only reason I can get away with it is I absolutely know for a fact that nobody I work with is watching any of this.
Yeah.
And because my numbers maintain where they need to be. So
exactly. All right, so then let's go this way, because Shauner's bringing up a lot of good points about new players. Like he says, some players have settled down, and settled for a routine, and new players don't hang for that. They really are looking forward to role playing. Now, I don't necessarily agree with this, because in general, I kind of hate them. He says, point the new player to an actual play on YouTube, see if they are still interested in playing. I think his point there is, like, give them an idea of what they should be expecting. As
the double-edged sword, though, because they might see a completely unrealistic expression of the game.
Well, most of the time, no matter, even if it's a really good live play, it's not going to be the same experience as playing at a table. So, no, I don't agree with that at all. I think they should sit down and play the game at a table, because it's going to probably overall be a better experience, and they're going to be involved in the experience. Watching somebody's play is not as interesting as actually playing also.
If you can find an organized play and, like, show up for a few games.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so what I was going to get to, though, is, so what are things that we can do to set the hook? And I was going to say in a new player, but I think we've brought up enough points where we also need to apply it to existing players. What are we going to do to keep either to keep that new player hooked, or to keep an old player hooked, even,
or get an old player hooked on a new game? Not just keep them hooked, but, like,
actually, we'll just run around a couple of times, and let's just start with hooking new players, hooking old players, and hooking new games. So, but just do one at a time, because we got a lot of questions in that one. So let's start with Cody. Hooking new players.
Hooking new players. Usually I just try to keep it fast and exciting, and I don't. Somebody mentioned earlier that you shouldn't be expecting as much out of a new player. So, I generally, ask a lot of questions to a new player, which I wouldn't do to a veteran player. With a veteran player, I'm going to just present a lot of situations, and they're going to tell me what they want to do and interact with the situation. A new player doesn't know to do that. So I'm going to be like, what do you want to do? Here's some things you can do, but you can do whatever you want. I always put that in their head that, hey, this is a role-playing game. This isn't a choose your own adventure book, but I'm giving you some ideas what you can do, but I'll be subtle about it. I'm not like, okay, what do you want to do? And here's the things you can do. No, I'm like, what would you like to do? And you could do this, you could do that, or you could do something else. Do you have another idea? Something like that. Kind of lead them by the nose a little bit more so than you would a veteran player, and also make it, just fast and exciting. That doesn't always have to be, that's not the general rule for all my role-playing sessions, but for new players, it generally is, just because I want to get them into the action. I want to get them doing all the things they're going to do in a role-playing. I want them to role-play and interact and make that exciting too. Have really interesting probably more over-the-top NPCs than I usually have, that really stick in their minds. They're like, oh, that, this is interesting. This character's, funny or just weird, or whoa, this is really put them in interesting situations. And you're going to have to railroad them a little bit, but that's fine for the first couple sessions till they get comfortable, till they gain their feet. And when you see them become comfortable, then you can start, opening up and doing more things, presenting more options, and really freeing them, to the whole experience. And sometimes that takes a while. It can take a long time for certain players to get really comfortable with role playing and with just, social situations in general. I mean, it's, some people are just not comfortable in a social situation. So you have to break that shyness from them a little bit, But again, other players can help them with that too. And Zane was bringing up the point earlier about, there are good players that try too hard, and I totally agree with him. That's not what I was specifically talking about earlier. What I was talking about is, just setting a good example, but also dragging the other players, pushing them to the forefront more than yourself. You shouldn't, if you're usually, a veteran player, you shouldn't be taking all the spotlight. You should be trying to throw the new players into the spotlight. Yeah. And pushing them and shoving them more and encouraging them more. And you can help them out too. Don't be overbearing though. Obviously you don't want to be like, and you also don't want to give advice all the time. It's like, oh, you shouldn't have took that feat, or, you don't want to do that. What you really should do is that, or, I see it all the time with veteran players. Like they'll, new players will come across, I'm just giving an example, like a troll. And the veteran player knows exactly what to do against a troll, but the new players are like, they don't know what to do. So they start trying to figure things out. And the veteran player's like, oh, don't do that. Don't do that. This is what we got to do. And starts, breaking the wall. And that's not the way to do it. Let the new players figure it out. Let them have fun, push them into the spotlight, let them make decisions.
Yeah, throw it to them, ask them questions and stuff like that.
Yeah. But it's a two-sided deal. It's not just completely up to the GM. The veteran players should be helping out too, to make sure that the new players are having the best experience they can have.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I think that's a really good point. Is that alpha gamer mentality, like from board games, where you get that person's like, oh, I know what to do, and they just start telling everyone else. Absolutely,
that's how you get punched in the mouth.
Yeah.
Tell me how to play my Italians. Your Germans aren't doing their job.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's
another callback to Sunday.
It was a traumatic experience.
Zane, what about you? What do you do to keep the new players hooked?
Well, in the beginning, it's a run like the first or second session, really rule light, just really loose, really fast. Let them run with ideas. It's like, well, what do you want to do? Well, whatever. I want to go talk to this guard. Okay. What are you going to say? What? And that's the first, and that's when you've got an absolute greenhorn is you get this, hey, so what are you going to say? How are you going to approach them? Are you going to do prep work? And they're like, I didn't know that was an option. But the first session or so is real loose and light. And what you're hoping for is to get them familiar with some of the mechanics very slowly. I mean, not a rush to it, but it's like, hey, this is where an acrobat skill would be good. Or if you're running a skill heavy game, or, that would usually require dice roll, let's do this. So introduce some of the mechanic behind the play, but mostly just let their minds run. And I love one of the in the chat, and I apologize, I didn't catch who it was who said it, but it was, ask them up front, what movies do you like? What books have you read? What movies do you like? Because, man, that is going to set the tone. And, you know, as a DM or game master, whatever your system is calling it, this gives you an opportunity to, you know, pepper in a little bit of flavor. That's something that's going to pull them in. That's the idea that I have. Is I like to go loose and light in the first 1 or 2, 3 tops runs, just to give them a chance to fart around with some of the mechanics and let them fail so that they understand it. Now, obviously, there's going to be a little divine intervention, DM intervention. There's unless it's you. If you're doing a one shot, let them die. Do something stupid. Find out. Let them die. Like, oh, that was dumb. Let's roll a new character. Okay. We usually had prefabs. Quick start, or either a quick start or a prefab put together so that it's like, all right, we're going to try a thing. Well, that didn't work. Here's a new character. Try it again. Let them learn.
Len.
I mean, if you really want to get them hooked, honestly, heroin, because I promise you they'll be back next week and they'll be really excited. So,
It'll do it.
Pepperoni.
Yeah. That poses some complications. So if you don't want to go that route, then I guess the next option would be Shauner, I think, was the one who said it, and Zane jumped on it. All kidding aside, and I will jump on it as well. There's an old sales interview question, which is you hand a pen to the person you're interviewing and you say, sell me this pen. And anyone who starts trying to sell you the pen, you understand that they're a novice.
Sell me the pen.
And anyone who starts asking you questions about how you use pens and tell me about your favorite pen, and you're like, okay, this person has some understanding of sales. And this is kind of the same. Ask people questions. You want to get someone hooked? You have no idea how to get them hooked until you talk to them and find out what's interesting to them. What do they know about RP? What have they seen? What do they like? Is there anything they didn't like from what they've seen? And then genre-wise, what do they watch? What do they enjoy? What, you know, and even what world they would like to play in. You kind of have to have all that information, and presumably you had some of this anyway when you invited them to game X, whether that was sci-fi or fantasy or Gamma World or whatever. But the more you dig in and understand what it is that they have an interest in, the more you can attempt to hook them in. Then layer in the stuff that everyone's talking about and obviously give them an opportunity to shine and let them feel their way through. And, you know, don't crush them under a ton of rules, unless in talking to them, you realize that they are one of those puzzle oriented persons who will completely get off on running off with a complex rule book to figure out the way to make the most powerful character. If you're playing Pathfinder, 2E or 1E, and they're the kind of person who will dig it, well, great. But you found that out by asking them about what they like and what they're interested in and so on. So ask questions, and their answers will tell you what you need to do to hook them.
Okay. No, I think those are all great points. One thing that I wanted to kind of play off of was what Cody was saying about, telling, oh, don't take that feat or don't do that thing. And it kind of sparked a memory in my head from work, because dealing with over the years that I've been at my job, you'd have people where a customer would call in and the product that they had bought, they couldn't get it working the way they wanted. And so the person would be like, oh, well, that doesn't work for you. So let's cancel that and let's buy this other product. This one will work for you. And then the customer would call back and they still couldn't get it to work. And So then they would cancel that one and they would sell them a different product. And they're always trying to tell them, oh, this is the thing that'll work for you. This is the thing that'll work for you. And the attitude that I always tried to approach is, you already have this product. Okay. So in role-playing terms, you already have this feat, this class, this race, whatever it is. And you're trying to do something and it's not working. Okay, well, how can we make it work with what you've already chosen? How can we get, oh, you want to use this, or you took this feat? Okay, me as a game master, what can I do to let you use that feat? Have some fun with the choice that you made, as opposed to coming and say, oh, well, you shouldn't have taken that because that's just a dumb feat to take. So, actually, I think Shauner puts. I really like the way he put that. You need a house to go with this doorknob. I think that's a fantastic way to put it. Is to keep those new players hooked. Don't tell them they're wrong, because let's be honest, it's role playing. They can't. Well, I mean, I guess in some ways you can be wrong, but
you could totally build a terrible Pathfinder character, and if you intended it, great. But often they don't intend it.
Well,
right.
Yeah. I was just about to say, I will ask new players up front, depending on whatever game we're playing, I'm like, what kind of character do you want to play? What do you have in mind? Here's the setting. Here's what we're doing. What kind of character do you want to play? Like, what's like, if we're playing D&D, what's your favorite character in like fantasy fiction? Pick somebody out that you like, and we'll try to make that character modeled off of that. And usually, of course, with a new player, I'm going to help them make their character.
Sure.
So in doing so, I'm going to be like, here's probably what you should do if you want to play this type of character, and here's the things you can take. And here's the class you probably want to select and things like that. Here's some other options you can do, because they're going to be, if they're completely new to it, they're going to be pretty overwhelmed by all this information. Even if the game system's incredibly simple to us, to a new player, that's, this is a completely new concept. So you want to, that is part of making sure they have a good experience. You want to make sure that they create a character that's going to be fun for them to play, so that kind of overrides a little bit what I was saying earlier. Don't tell them what to do. That was more so in game, I guess, and more so of players being like, oh, that feat sucks and that kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like just players that overbear and just want to, just completely.
Yeah, sometimes they're not even like, that sucks. They're like, oh, this is the best thing. If you're going to make a thief, make sure you take this and this and that.
Right.
And,
but
puzzle people.
But the new player might see some ability or whatever the game may be, and they're like, oh, I like that. That sounds fun to me. It might not be the best thing to do, but they're going to latch on to this thing. And it's like, okay, cool.
I want to be a one-legged thief.
Yeah. So whatever it may be. And so let them do it. And let them make mistakes and learn. And then after the session, be like, do you like that character? Do you want to change anything about it? Or was there something you didn't like about it? And, talk to them about these things, obviously.
Yeah, for me, one thing that I try to do is, in addition to all the other great advices here, when I'm running for somebody for the first time, I tend to make myself much more open to ideas that they have coming into the game than I might for my veteran players. A good example, my first 5e game I ran for all the kids back in the day, it was like 10 of them. And this one kid came in, he'd always wanted to play D&D, heard about it left and right, and never got a chance to play, came into the game, and he's like, and I'm like, all right, what do you want to play? And he looks through the book, 5e, and he picks the one combination that I had just kind of already written out of the setting.
Dwarf Wizard.
No, it was actually Dragonborn Barbarian. And I'm like, okay. And so we made it work. And it just happens that there was an undefined area of my map called the Dragon Coast. And I'm like, all right, so here's the deal. You're a barbarian from the Dragon Coast. They're used to, and him and I talked together. And by the time we were done, we had not only come up with a cool character, but my world had a cool new part to it. Like I had the Dragon Coast, which used to be the Empire of the Dragons, and it fell, and now all the people there were living in barbaric splendor, and that's where his character was from. He had a great time, and he did all sorts of stupid shit. And after we were done, and his character had died from doing stupid shit, I'm like, "Did you have fun?" He's like, "Yeah, I had fun." I'm like, "What do you want to play next?" He's like, "I'm probably not going to play a Dragonborn Barbarian." But if he had come to me as an experienced player or experienced with me as a GM, I probably would have been a bit more. I would give him more pushback. Like, all right, no barbarian, no Dragonborn in this setting. I had already written them out. But no, I'm not going to. Here's your dream character you want to play coming into the game. No, you can't play it. That's a sure way to not get a player. So.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. With new players, you definitely have to, let me rephrase that. With new players, like maybe a session or two under their belt, be a little bit more lenient as far as what you'll let them do, just because, you don't want to smash out that fire right away. They've been playing for a couple of years. Okay, sorry, this is my, you're coming into my campaign. Here's the rules that I've already put down. I'm not necessarily going to work
shop with the miniatures side of things. We used to have this saying, "Let the Wookiee win." If a new kid comes in and wants to play miniatures games with you, don't smash him. Don't ruin him on and wreck his dreams. Let him play. Don't go easy on him necessarily, but don't turn on full turbo competitive mode. And same thing with your RPGs. Yeah, you may be a GM who is like very world building and very strict and specific about what goes on in your campaign setting. That's not the time for it when kids' first campaign is showing up there. So
I want to touch on something, if I can, just real quick. And this may be part of an ongoing conversation that I'm not fully following, so I apologize. But Shauna mentioned something about have a new player watch all of D4 D&D Deep Dive, or he mentioned previously about, I don't know if it was Shauna or someone else mentioning about having them watch an actual play.
That was Shauna.
And I will say, I humbly disagree with any advice that is have a new player do homework before the game. Because I know that for me personally, if someone's like, "Hey, Len, you want to come do this new hobby thing that you don't do, but I do?" And I'm like, "Yeah, totally cool. When should I be there?" And they're like, "Yeah, you can be there at 8:00. Great. So here's the only thing I need you to do before that. Could you do just like a couple of hours of homework on it?" I'd be like, "Oh, you know what? I'm so sorry. I forgot. I'm going to get my I'm going to figure out what I'm doing, but I'm doing it at that time." So yeah,
barrier to entry should be as minimal as possible.
So yeah, telling people to do homework, and I got to be honest, I tend to not even do that with experienced players, and that's just because as an adult with kids and a job and whatever, I know that my window of time.
Here's the 43-page campaign primer.
I like it's absolutely minimum just because we're not in high school anymore. And we're swamped. At least everyone I know is incredibly busy. And the fact that they can carve out time to play at all is honestly deeply appreciated. Because not one person who I game with, if we don't game, doesn't have something else. So that time will immediately fill up with family stuff, with just with life. So I'm personally keep that to an absolute minimum. If I need people to know something, I'm going to try to work it into the game as much as I can. And certainly for a new player, oh my God, I don't think we should throw up barriers to entry.
Yeah, I think like a better way to do that, if you like, because I don't like the idea of making it homework, but like before the first session, I'm gonna absolutely agree with you. After the first session, though, say, okay, hey, before we play next time, if you want to, say it's going to be a couple of weeks before you can play. If you want to learn more about the setting or whatever, check out this movie, check out this TV show, or if you want to make your own character between sessions, like I've never heard of D4 before, go check that out before we come back in a couple of weeks. but at least let them get that first taste. Sit around the table, have some fun, before you assign that, because then I think you're right that, oh, look at the time, I have to do thing, I think is very much a possibility.
I find it's useful and more effective to let the player guide those follow-ups too, because if they are not interested in studying more and learning more or watching more to become a better player, that may not mean they don't want to be a better player. It means that that's just not the route that they want. But at the same time, you could always throw it out there casually because they might not even know it exists.
Sure.
So, but like if you sit there, all right, you've played your first game. Now I have 5 hours worth of homework for you to do.
Yeah, that's why. Like I even literally would just put it as a suggestion. Hey, if you're wanting like we started playing our Star Trek game, and after the first session, suddenly I'm watching Lower Decks, I'm watching Deep Space Nine. I'm like, I've already watched them all, but suddenly I played a Star Trek game.
A whole IP for that. So.
Well, right, exactly. But I'm just using it as I played one game and bam, I needed to keep that drip going between the sessions. Here's something I could do. Yeah. That's why I was putting it as a throw some suggestions they can do. Nothing required, but you might like these in the meantime.
Yeah.
So, all right. So what about active players? What do we do to keep our active players hooked?
Well, we've already mentioned it. You find what interests them. Yeah, you like Zane's about to say it at the same time I said it. I think is you find what interests them and find what kind of person they are and hook onto that to hook them, right?
Blackmail.
So yeah,
blackmail.
Heroin,
blackmail.
You're gonna stay in my game, or else your puppy gets it.
I have your first board.
I played with one of my supervisors, and he was really into the game, and he told and most of the players were on his team at work, and he's like, if any of you quit the campaign, I'm going to give you a bad review.
Jeez.
It was his first ever D&D game too, and talk about like finding expectations. Like, so what is it you want out of D&D? He's like, I have 2 requirements: a dungeon and a dragon. I'm like, oh shit, because I had written all the dragons out of my campaign setting. I'm like, the ancient kings ate them all, killed and ate them all. But no, yeah, it's, blackmail, it works.
Well, no, but I'm also talking like the players. It's been a couple of years. Like how do you keep them? How do you keep them hooked? How do you keep them interested?
Usually, like I was just saying, whatever the player is interested in, just keep them interested in that thing and ask them. I always ask, and I'm like, be honest, guys. Like, did you like the session? What did you not like about it? Usually, I do this like separately. I'll text them, or I'll when we're hanging out, like a couple days after the game, I'm like, what did you think of the session? Like, you enjoying the game, or like, what would you like to see more of? Are you getting bored, or you still interested, or like, what would you like to do? What does your character want to do? Find the motivations of what they want to do, and give them a little bit of spotlight time, and give them a little bit of moment of what everybody has something different that they want to do. Me, like if I'm a player in a game, which is rare, but nowadays I'm actually getting to play in some games now. Like, I want to role play. That's what I want to do. That's all I want to do. I don't care about rolling dice. I don't care what setting it is. I just want to role play a character.
Dr. Jeb Taylor.
Exactly. Like, it doesn't matter, whether it's a halfling or Dr. Jeb Taylor or whatever. I just want to play this character and like interact with the NPCs and interact with the other players and have a good time. Like, that's what I enjoy as a player. But every player is going to be different. Some players just like the mechanics. They just like making the character and like seeing that character progress. And like some players like the rules. They just like, they like the tactical situation. They want to move figures around on a map. Some players just like hanging out. Some players just like to be there. They don't want to interact too much. They don't care about the rules too much. They just want to hang out with their friends and have a good time. So everybody's going to be different, and you just need to make sure that you can. And it's hard to do. It's hard to do to give everybody what they want, but at the same time, it's a very good thing to be aware of what everybody likes and try to feed them a little bit of what everybody. What's really great is if everybody's on board with one thing. And a good example is I was running what is the module? Village of Hamlet. I was running Village of Hamlet. All fired. I was running Castles and Crusades campaign, and I kicked it off with Village of Hamlet. And if you played, if you played Village of Hamlet before, there's an abandoned keep, right? And you clear out the keep, and then you go down, and there's like a dungeon you clear out and everything. But they got really excited about this keep. They didn't even care about anything else. They were like, "Oh, can we buy the keep?" And I'm like, "What?" And they're like, Who owns the keep? And I'm like, so I had to be like, okay, well, maybe there's like somebody in town that has a need for the keep. This is what they wanted to do. They were like all obsessed with like fixing up this keep and everything. I'm like, yeah, but there's like this whole other. They're like, yeah, but the keep. We want the keep. And they got like all excited about this keep. So like suddenly I was going to run, Temple of Elemental Evil. Now I'm running a completely different campaign, and they cleared out the dungeon, and they're like fixing up the keep. And now they got to defend the keep, and there's, so you find what they're interested in and just roll with it, and just make sure they're having fun. Is the name of the game.
I pretty much actively listen to my players throughout the entire campaign, and take little notes. And I don't like directly pander to them. Like I don't like, you want a magic sword, so I'm gonna make a magic sword. I'm gonna put it right in your path. But I will pay attention to what their characters are and listen to what their dreams and aspirations are in the game, and I'll write them down, and I will put them in the world somewhere. Like I had a monk in my campaign, so I spent a little bit of time coming up with all these like scrolls that could teach him new martial arts techniques, and and they were out there in the world. He never found them, but they were out there in the world for him. Like if I have a character who's like really into giants, so I'm like, might have some cool role-playing encounters with giants or something like that. But yeah, but I actively listen while I'm running the game and listen for the cues because if you come to a player and ask them what they want, a lot of times they'll be like, oh, nothing specific. I'm having a good time. They'll be kind of like wishy-washy on it. And you're like, all right. And then, but while they're playing, if they're like, oh man, these giants, they're so cool. And you're like, giants. You like the giants. Okay, cool. So there'll be more giants. All the giants. But no, it pays off. And ultimately, if they don't ever find those scrolls with the martial arts techniques, I still have them in my campaign. So they're there, and I have 3 magic items written up for for somebody to find. It's never wasted work.
Right.
So,
Zane?
Well, I'm gonna refer to this gaming session that we're to keep the veteran players. Before this new DM decided to run a game, he's doing the goofiest thing. So this is a group of people that I've known. We met playing EverQuest way back in the day, right? And he wants. So here's this kid, and he wants to play Crushbone and do a thing. And so I talked to him as the player. I'm talking to the DM. It's like, what are you trying to get done? Oh, we're gonna do a thing. We're gonna do a thing, and the goal is to go into Crushbone and do a thing. I'm like, well, that's horribly vague, and yeah, okay. Why am I there, dude? Why am I? Why are any of us together? Oh, Crushbone. I'm like, great. Let me grab so I went in character, and it's like, I want to play a high elf. I'm going to take orc, and let's see, I'm going to play a fighter, go champion with a backstory of a knight. This should be interesting. So I'm a knight scout, blah, blah, blah. Finesse, dexterity build. and they were like, "Why did you do all that? That's an easy character. That's a worthless character. There's better fighters." We get into the game and we're playing the thing, and one of the new guys is like, "Dude, we're gonna die." I'm like, "No, man, I got it." Because we're about to be overrun by a couple legionnaires, and we're kind of in a bad place. And I yell out in Orc. You get this interaction. What's going on? And so I responded in Orc that, "Oh, somebody's so-and-so is beating up one of the slaves. Don't worry about it." "Oh, okay. Have a good one." And I told the group real quick. Sorry. And they're like, everybody kind of stops for a hot second. "What was that?" "I speak Orc. I'm a scout from the Night Corps. I just told him that one of the dudes is beating up a slave. We've got a limited amount of time to get our stuff done." And all of a sudden, the paladin, who's been pretty quiet, he goes, "You can do that?" We just hooked the newbie. It's an innocuous thing. It's an opportunity when as a player, my job is to not only enjoy the setting that I'm in, but to try to work with the people that I'm with so that we can succeed at our task. We're in there to rescue some people that have been kidnapped by Crushbone to be used as slaves. This is a great setting, an incredible opportunity. Well, we can either be murder hobos and just level the place. Yay, that's going to be fun. Or we can have some fun with it and try to, how do you pull in a role-playing game? How do you stagger the mobs in a role-playing game? And I'm trying to introduce these concepts to these new players and to reintroduce these concepts to some of the older players as well, is that it's like, guys, we can either have fun with this or we can roll dice. What do you want to do? That's what I think. That's how you, as a player, that's how I want to try to help keep other players playing. As a DM, it's what Eli said, man. You listen. What are they after? And you don't have to, fill out a questionnaire. That's about as fun as rubbing your face on a book.
Your answers will usually be wrong anyways. If you
listen
give
to what they're saying. Oh yeah, because they're not. They don't know what the situation is. What shenanigans are you going to throw at them, and how are they going to react to it? And you stack up a series of critical fails. Exactly. There you go. Yeah, Len's got it down. Oh, and Traveler. That's a great book. Listening to what they're saying in the moment and how they react to this one poor fool. He's 4 critical failures in a row, just fail, and it's like, dude, you got to. Can I give him my inspiration? Just let him re-roll something. Holy bugger, and make light of it in the moment. Have fun with it. Make sure that they don't look at those critical failures as a failure of them, but an opportunity to do something different within the game. So it goes both ways. It's the responsibility of both the player and the DM to help the rest of the players, stay interested and engaged in the setting that you're in. Because otherwise, you're just going to roll some dice and go, "Yeah, that was fun. Give me my experience. Let's see what loot I got. Have a nice day. We'll see you in a week." Man, if I wanted that, I'll go back to work.
Yeah.
That's fair as the only retired guy in the panel tonight.
Sweet.
So, Len, what about you? What do you do to keep the existing players hooked?
Before I answer that, quick comment. Zane said, "What do you want to do? Do you want to roll dice or do you want to have fun?" I know he just said that in passing, but allow me to say that if rolling the dice and interfacing with the game mechanics is not entertaining, play better games. Because the game needs
spoken like a game designer.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. The mechanical components of the game need to be fun to interact with. And if they're not, play better games. In fact, I feel bad for Jim Cody, who's playing Prowlers and Paragons right now, which thank you. But you're playing it online. And Prowlers and Paragons was designed, because I'm 10,000 years old, was designed to be played around a table. And it's just not the same game. There is a significant tactile component to the game. That's why you roll a bunch of dice. And that's why you've got resolve that's meant to be spent like poker chips. I have a giant thing of poker chips for that. There is an intentionally, because it's a superhero game, there is an intentional tactile element to that game that, at least for me and for other folks I've spoken to, it's fun, it's fine online and everything else, but you're missing an element of the intention of the design by not playing it around the table. So at some point we got to play it around the table. We'll throw poker chips at each other and get that going. But in any event, so with that aside, then how to keep players interested. I mean, everyone's advice is, I think, entirely 100% on point. So I think it's to keep players interested, a veteran player interested, you've got to help them care about their character. And sometimes that's a backstory from the beginning, but often that backstory from the beginning doesn't quite work until they get to know their character. So sometimes it's backstory elements that get teased out after they're playing their character for a little bit. I think most players actually get to know their character by playing, even if they have an idea ahead of time of what they want to play and so on. It's still in game and interacting with the other personalities where that character starts to get fleshed out. And once that character starts to get fleshed out, then you can start thinking about where their character was before where they are right now. And then each character is going to have different things that they're interested in. And sometimes it's active listening. And I will say sometimes it's me slamming it into them at the get-go. I am right now in the middle of, and I think I mentioned this before, a game where the players are wildly invested, more than I think in any game I've ever played. And it's because I started them as kids and had a dragon destroy their village. And understand, these are adult, fully adult men with children and lives. But I assure you, I don't know what they're capable of, but they would do terrible things in real life to make sure they got to kill this dragon in this game. And I think it's just because of the way it started and their investment in that from the outset. And if you're playing in a game where that hasn't been set up, you may want to find that for yourself to keep yourself invested. And you may want to help tease that out of veteran players as they begin to get to know their characters. They may not have it at the outset, but you can dig after the fact. While after the fact, backfilling of backstory is really crappy writing. Star Wars, Disney, are you listening? Sorry, but it's excellent role playing. It's excellent role playing. So,
okay, yeah, no, I agree with all of that. One thing that I will touch on is sort of along the lines of what Shauner said. He said most players just want to hang with other people. They aren't really serious about the game. I disagree with the part about not being serious about the game, but like for me, a lot of the reason that I am interested in these games is because I want to do these things with my friends.
I disagree with the most players part of that.
Well, no, I would for in the context of that sentence, most players just want to hang with other people. In this case, you don't want to play a role-playing game because you want to be by yourself. You want to be with other people. You want to do something. Unless you're one of those weird solo role players.
Yeah.
At which point just go write your novel.
I say that because most role players I know of want to play the game and they understand that involves people, but wanting to play the game comes first. So,
yeah. Well, the point that I was going to make, though, is that don't forget that we are friends around the table. To me, like the thing that got me most excited about getting into the Star Trek game is that Bear was going to run it. Cody was going to play in it. Sean jumped in on it. And it's like, do you guys realize we've been doing the 4-Color Cafe for 6 months now? Yeah. The look on Len's face.
I'm new to it, so Doesn't have that much impact for me.
This is special issue 6, meaning this is the 6th time that I've hosted it because Bear's been unavailable for whatever reason.
Wow.
And we're on I think it was issue 17 last week, and we missed 1 week. So it's been 6 months now. Okay.
Wow.
I keep showing up to the 4-Color Cafe because these are my friends and I have people here that are nice to me, and I make weird parasocial relationships with people who are nice to me. So you're welcome, everyone.
So we need to have that Lassie moment where we throw rocks at you and tell you that we don't want you anymore.
Yes, you do.
Go away.
But
don't love you.
But that's a lie, Eli, and you know it.
It is
quite lovable.
It's really a lie.
But I think that is one of the biggest things for keeping existing players around, making sure that the players at the table know. I mean, they don't have to know that you love them or that you're their best friend, but just know that they want you you want them at the table. You want them to show up. You want them to be involved. That alone is going to go so far as keeping them coming back. Whether they're having a bad day, whether they're having other problems, they're going to keep showing up, because I absolutely despise the term, but it is honestly a safe space for them. They can show up, they can be there, and hey, you know what? Maybe the game gets put to the side today because we all just need to hang out and talk about whatever, or life, or
that's happened. Yeah.
I don't drink, but quote unquote have a beer because
don't mind if I do.
Yeah. Cody and Eli drink. So that's what I would say is important as far as keeping the existing players hooked. So at this point, I don't know anything. I'm not sure what else to ask. Anything anyone wants to add or think we missed?
The only thing I could think of adding to the conversation about getting players hooked is it's okay not to. I mean, it's really okay to, and as a GM, somebody who's mostly a GM, I really have to be okay with the fact that some players are going to bounce off my games. They're going to come to my game. You're not going to want to play anymore. It wasn't for them. They had a good time. I did almost a year as a paid DM for the local shop for a while, and there would be guys who'd come in and they'd play, and I'd never see them again. And it was always like, man, did I do something wrong? Or and no, they were just trying out D&D, and they had an opportunity. It was really easy insertion. They dropped their money down. They sat at the table. They got to play. They had a good time, or at least they seemed to have a good time. But they never came back. So my hope was always that they had a taste of it. They bought all the books and they went off with their friends and started their own campaigns, because that was ultimately my goal as a paid GM. Was like, can I get you to play games? But and that was why the store wanted me there. But there are those people who aren't going to bounce off the games, and the flip side of that is if you can't recognize when somebody's not having a good time and isn't hooked, it can lead to some really bad situations. I've lost a whole ass friend over gaming. He was going through some stuff. He wasn't talking to me, even though I was asking the questions. You having a good time? I was doing the active listening, and he exploded all over me like some sort of Cheeto eating Claymore, and and next thing you know, I'm a shit DM, and I never gave him anything to work with, and I've ruined his creativity. And he won't play. I've ruined D&D for him, and it all comes down to just yeah, I mean, that was a kind of an extreme situation. There was clearly a lot going on there, but like, if don't push it, don't force it. Had to deal with this when I was running games for the kids. Like, I really wanted to run games for my kids and their friends, but when they weren't into it, I had to accept that. I'm like, oh, well, it sucks. I kind of wanted to play with you kids, but
Right.
I wanted to just, it went from 10 to like a core group of 4, and the other 10 just, there were more important things, Animal Crossing, boys, and coffee, and whatever else, roller derby. But no, one of them was roller derby. But yeah, so yeah, be okay with not getting the person hooked is, I guess, what I'm saying as a GM. It's part of the equation. Not everybody is gonna stick to you like Velcro and be there forever until you die, rolling dice on your deathbed. But
No, Eli's got a great point. Like, I've had many people come and go, for my games. Lots and lots of people. And that's fine. And I tell everybody up front, I'm like, and I've had players tell me, they're like, I've had players tell me, I didn't really enjoy the game. I'd like something more like this. And I'm like, well, that's not really what I have to offer, because this is the way I GM. This is the way I run games. There's other games out there. You might want to go talk to so-and-so, or you might want to go to the game store and find somebody else. Nothing wrong with that. Like, everybody's got different taste. Everybody's got a different way of doing things. Just like, playing music, it's been the same example, right? Same kind of experience. You're not always going to find, just because I can play drums and you can play guitar doesn't mean we're going to, like to play the same kind of music. You know what I mean? Like, and it's the same thing with playing role-playing games. So, and that's fine. Like, just go find another group. Just go find somebody else. Or maybe it's just not for you. Like Eli was saying, there's a lot of people where role-playing games are just not right for them. They think they might like it. They try it. They might try it a few times. Now, I always tell them to try, some different games. Try playing with some different groups to, really get an indication to tell if you really like it or not. Because again, you might game with one group and that's not the type of style or type of game you want to play, but you might play with another group and they're doing more of what you want to do. But for a lot of people, it's just not for them, and that's fine. I wish it was for everybody, but it's not.
Sure.
Well, I'd like to point on that, build off of that. I would actually, because I remember when we first started out playing, it was there was a core group of us, little basic D&D, the Red Book, and there was, I don't know, 8-10 of us or so. We were young, and we knew we were the only kids in our school that played. So it was kind of rough, even though we weren't friends before. Kind of the word got out. It's like, hey, these guys role play. They got D&D. And the moms all signed off as well. They're not worshiping the devil, so you'll be fine. We know they're on Saturday night, and it was so stupid back at that point. But it was, we were kind of thrust together and we really weren't friends until we started playing games together, and I'm still friends with several of them, and it went to a point where all of a sudden we realized it's like, this is satisfied an itch. And now I want to do something different. And there was 3 of us that by this time we were in junior high, not quite high school. Traveler came out. And it was back in the day of, like Fortran, was it Fortran 40? Pascal, Cobalt, and Fortran were the big boys at the time.
Man, you're old.
And I got to, yeah, I know, right? And the whole point of the story is that Traveler introduced me to a completely different group of people that were absolutely fascinated with trying to create programs to do like system generation, doing star system generation. But you had to do, because this is before the Boolean loops. So these were all if then or you were doing nested loops to create these systems, blah, 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 technical garbage. The unbelievable fun that we had sitting around tearing apart. I wrote a chunk of code. It was like 6,000 or 7,000 lines of Cobalt, and then you'd write out your code, and it's like, all right, I think this works. Before you take it down to the compiler to do the job, you hand it to your buddy, and they're going through and they're checking your work for you to make sure, where's that? Did you drop a space? And you're looking at this on a dot matrix printer. What a pain in the ass. And it was so much fun. But it was so much fun because here was something it's a bunch of math nerds, logic nerds, and you've got a goal. We weren't playing Traveler. We were creating programs to generate star systems. That's not role playing. It's completely specifically affiliated to Traveler, and yet it was some of the most fun that I've had in that system. And I think that's really what. And to bring it back to the end point was the thing that we forget about now is that with the technology that's available and the resources that are available, it's a lot easier if you're willing to take the chance. Get up. Go to a forum, find people that are inviting us. Like, hey, I'm running a game. Great, join. Do I know you? Nope. Do I know the system? Nope. Give it a try. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? You're going to have fun? Oh, darn.
Don't threaten me with a good time.
Or worse, right?
Occasionally you meet a creeper, but only occasionally.
You get some weirdos in there. It's been an interesting experience.
We let you join us, Eli.
There.
No,
but what was that?
I said we let you join us, Eli.
but even if you meet the weirdos, at least it brings.
If I'm the weirdo, you guys are the most boring fuckers in existence.
No, Eli's not a weirdo.
I mean, I am weird. I'm just not that weird.
The point of the conversation for me is really what it comes down to is win, lose, or draw, and regardless of what you find is fun. You've just met new people and you've seen something from a different perspective, and man, that has been an absolute joy. In that, I'd given up quite a bit on gaming because over time the group grows smaller and smaller unless you start, meeting new people, opening up that circle of friends that you're willing to game with, because really that's what gaming comes down to is these are people that are going to become friends. If the sessions continue, and man, that's a pretty interesting thing, and it's a lot of fun. So, go find an odd group, play a game that you don't necessarily like, because you're going to see something different. That's my two cents, man.
Even my paid gamers, when I was doing the paid GM thing, still ended up becoming friends, even though they're paying me to run a game. One guy comes in one day, he's like, hey, I got this extra copy of this Kickstarter. You want it? I'm like, yeah. I brought some pizza in. I'm like, okay. Next thing you know, I'm his friends on Facebook. I'm seeing pictures of his kids and him doing cool shit, and we're just talking back and forth, and that's awesome. Even after the game, even after I stopped running the games at that shop doing the professional gaming, it's still like, hey, I saw your post on such and such. That's really cool. I'm like, okay, you still made friends. You still made connections, even though they were paying me for a service, because gaming is that, I guess what I'm trying to say is gaming is that kind of a social glue. It will make friends out of people, even if you don't try. And I have a cat about to get into some trouble back there.
Yeah.
Please do not jump up on that.
Now we're all watching the cat. No, I think that's a good point. I mean, gaming, like even in a quote unquote professional standpoint, gaming is different because I've made, as I've mentioned before, I've gone to all sorts of conventions. Usually I'm working, but I've made tons of friends working at the convention, whether it's players or attendees at the convention, other people at different game companies, whatever it is. I've made those friends, even though it started with maybe a little bit of a commercial interaction. So it's definitely a different type of industry, I guess we could say. Len looks like he's itching to say something. No, apparently not.
No more or less than normal. No.
All right. Well, then we are right about at 2 hours. I can't think of anything else to ask. So let's do this. Let's go around. Final thoughts, shout outs, anything you want to say, promote, etc. We will end the show, and I think we're back here next week. Don't quote me on it though. Anyways, Eli.
My channel is Elfbait. I do streaming on Sundays. It's about all I'm doing right now. I have a Discord that's pretty active under the same name. Talk about everything there from miniatures to RPGs. Trying to get some gaming going on there as well. So drop by. I'm also a regular participant in Midweek Geek over at Ye Olde Geeks channel, and here more so as I can get to it. Yeah. Other than that, that's all I got.
Cody.
Well, I just wanted to say that, you guys were talking about, one of the best things about role-playing games is meeting new people. And I totally agree. All the best friends and real friends I've met in my life are through gaming. I've met people in music and work and all different types of other atmospheres, but really all the lifelong friends, the real friends I've made in life and still making to this day are in gaming. And that's one of the greatest things to me about gaming. But yeah, I do have a little channel. You can go check it out. I think everybody knows that here. I talk about a lot of old and dead games, but I've also been talking about some new games. I run games usually every Sunday, though lately they've been canceled over and over again. But hopefully this Sunday we'll be playing session 2 of Old School Essentials. And tomorrow we'll be talking about Lord of the Rings. Me and a couple of friends have been reading through Lord of the Rings, and we've been discussing it every other week. So come check that out tomorrow.
Zane. Zane is on some sort of a delay.
I'm old. I speak sarcasm and movie quotes. Yeah, I'm on a web-based repeater, and unfortunately, the beach is beautiful. However, the internet sucks. As I said, I speak movie quotes and sarcasms, and if you get a chance to, even if the people that you meet don't necessarily agree with your worldviews or some of the things that you like or don't like, if they share anything with you, like movie quotes and sarcasm, you're going to wind up with a friend. And those are the really interesting people to meet in the world. That's just my perspective.
Awesome. Len?
If you struggled like Elfbait to make a Luke Skywalker type character, you could always check out a game called Black Star. If you're not having fun role-playing, interfacing, rolling the dice, you could always check out Prowlers and Paragons or By This Axe I Hack. It's perfectly okay if you try to introduce someone to a game and you have a good session and you have fun, and they tell you, it's just not for me. It's perfectly okay to think less of them. And you really need to check out the Alternity review from Cody, because it was kind of cool, because I completely forgot about that game until you started talking about
Everybody did.
Huh? Everybody did. Exactly. So,
Right.
And Brian, thank you so much for filling in the enormous shoes of Mr. Bear while he's away. I know he told us we're fired, but I've already bolted the door, so he's not getting in. We're good.
Okay. Well, first off, I do actually want to thank Bear for number one, for the super chat. I know I brought it up earlier where he fired us all. I do want to thank him for that. But I am Brian. I run Gaming with ADHD. Literally, you don't know what you're going to find when you show up to my channel. It's all going to be tabletop gaming related, but it's all over the place because I'm all over the place. But honestly, just remember, these are games. We're having fun, but just remember it is going to be awesome when you make some fantastic new friends and you keep them hooked. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to hit the end stream button. It's going to end awkwardly at some point, but thank you so much for showing up, folks. And we will see you in the next one.